Welcome to the Psycho Studios podcast. Welcome to you, recorded live from the desert, Phoenix, Arizona. Happy holidays to all of our psychos. I'm Mr. Z, and co-hosting is Mr. W.
What's up?
We are a father-son duo that brings old school contemporary thoughts together. We started a TV/film production company at the end of 2022. We focus on feature film horror genre, and we have this podcast as well as our newsletter, The Sprinkler, to connect with our psychos. We hit topics like film, music, autos, some sports, wellness, commentary, practical life skills, and headlines.
And we definitely leave the politics at the door. We will be entertaining, insightful, and value add. We want to provide our listeners a space where they can leave the negative and foreboding news behind and stop scrolling for about an hour. Take a deep breath. We will share gratitude and appreciation of the little things. This will be the last time I say it, but I have to give a shout out to Ravi Malek for that.
I'm glad it's the last time, and I'm
I
gonna
will.
I'm gonna take you on that.
Okay, hold me to that. Regarding the Psycho Studios podcast as well as our newsletter, The Sprinkler, each episode and chapter will be fun, entertaining, engaging, and contain practical life skills to help our listeners with efficiency and money savings. We will be dropping our monthly podcast on the first of each month along with our newsletter. Check us out at our website, psycho-studio.com. That's psycho-studio.com. And let's kick this off with a fun share. Mr. Z, tell us about your getaway that you recently had with California and why you went on that trip.
It was a surprise birthday getaway for my girlfriend, and we went to Ramona, which is about 35 minutes away from San Diego.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that part. 35 minutes. What is it, north or south? Do you know?
It's south.
South, okay.
It's encrusted in the mountains.
Oh, wow. Encrusted. I like that.
And so it was just so that she could revisit where she grew up because she lived there for 18 years and sadly had to move to Arizona.
Nice. Shout out to Arizona Tourist Board.
Yes. But anyways, I we stayed in like a farm little townhouse. It was cool. It was in the mountains, far from civilization. It seemed like. And then we also went to downtown San Diego and the aquarium that's out there. Pretty spectacular time. So highly recommend going to San Diego. Maybe not so much Ramona, but
No, San Diego is definitely got a heartfelt spot for us. Tell us about the farm a little bit. Did you have to do any milking or slaughtering?
no, there was mainly peacocks.
It was a peacock farm?
Yeah, I don't
What
even
the hell
know.
is that? I'm going to have to Google that.
But all jokes aside, Ramona is very pretty and cute, but there's really much, like not much there, I should say.
Yeah,
So
it literally the definition of quaint, right?
yes,
Well, it sounds like you had a great time. You enjoyed yourself, right? And then you were safe as well.
yes.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that, Mr. Z. We appreciate that insight into the personal side of Mr. Z. And we're going to transition real quick into a quote. Would you like to read that one?
Um, no, you go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna read this one. This one is I shared this one with Mr. Z a few days ago, and it's coming from one of our most beloved tortured souls, Edgar Allan Poe. There is no exquisite beauty without some strangeness. So I totally love that quote. I mean, that's why we're sharing it. Mr. Z, anything you want to share about what that quote would mean to you?
Well, to me, no one's perfect, right? So for him being dark and twisted, that's beautifully said, saying, basically, if anyone is actually beautiful, it definitely comes with, some strangeness to the personality or something maybe peculiar to the
A
person.
little off, yeah. No, I love it, and that's the thing about Edgar Allan Poe. When the average person that has any awareness of him thinks of Edgar Allan Poe, you always think of dark and twisted and tortured, right? But there's a lot of beauty in what he wrote, and I'll just get through this quick. But for me, I know somebody that literally fits that quote, And it's funny because I don't think that they necessarily expose that strangeness to a lot of people, like their family and friends. I don't even know if they would share it with their significant other, but we have a unique relationship and they are totally an exquisite beauty. Let's say 20th Century Fox, as Jim Morrison would belt out. But you're talking about strangeness at a very high level. So, love the quote. Thanks for your insight and share there, Mr. Z. We really appreciate that. And we're going to jump into our favorite topic. But before we do, which is film, I'm sorry if I cut myself off there, just want to share a few notes real quick. And that working on editing ourselves, Mr. W. That means me. I need to edit myself. I need to keep our podcast to around 5150. And Mr. Z does the producing, so really he's the one that needs to wrangle me in. In addition, our newsletter, The Sprinkler, continues to evolve. Mr. Z has been working on this element, and our psychos can expect to see images of all sorts, embedded links, and an overall cleaner and more entertaining look. Very excited about that. This month's podcast and newsletter have slightly less content due to the holidays. Our podcast this month will have a similar flow other than length, and the special holiday newsletter will have the differences this time around, such as a special guest piece in the wellness section. The article and associated links are heartfelt, open, and timely, and they're written by a close friend of our studio. Mr. Z put together an electronic calendar, which is printable. I'm telling you that calendar just rocks. They contain 13 original photos of his, extensive catalog, so very excited about that. And then we also have 13 random recipes and also Mr. Z's top 6.5 cocktails. So we hope you enjoy the special holiday edition of The Sprinkler, and it'll return next month in its full menu of content and include those cool upgrades Mr. Z has been working on. So happy holidays to all our psychos. Anything you want to say to our psychos?
No, that was a lot of housekeeping. So just to condense that, some updates that will be continuing on our website, to our podcast, to our newsletter, just all across the board. It's always revolving and upgrading. So hopefully, it's more legible for everyone to read.
Yeah, visually appealing. Really excited about the stuff and the hard work that you've been putting into that. So we're going to jump right into film then. Thanks for condensing that, or I guess rephrasing that for me. So we finally watched Talk to Me, and it's something we've been wanting to do for a while, but things get in the way. And the runtime on Talk to Me is just over 90 minutes. The scores right out of the gate, Mr. Z gave it a 6.5. I'm giving it a 5.5. And even though those might be lower scores, especially mine, it was entertaining. And Mr. Z's girlfriend also attended the showing, as it were. And we watched it after celebrating with some handcrafted signature cocktails from Mr. Z. And we had low expectations. We didn't realize it was an Australian flick, but I do like that. Maybe it's just because Australia is always that like backwards toilet flush compared to the US. So there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. Of course, it's a big island on top of it, but the pace of the movie was decent. Story was good, was kind of on the cool side, but the ending faltered, and there were verbal and physical continuity issues, in my opinion, for probably 3/4 of the movie. Get this before Mr. Z shares any thoughts. The movie cost slightly less than $5 million to make, and it's grossed almost $95 million. I would have never imagined that.
Yeah, before it even grossed that 95 million, they already said that they were going to be making a sequel.
Really?
Yes. So,
Is it Don't Talk to Me?
so I mean, it kind of leaves on a cliffhanger. You kind of understand what's going on in the universe without giving spoilers. But I mean, what really stood out to me is that I think it would even make it even better. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but the soundtrack, if it was a little bit better. But visually, if you turn the everything off and had your own soundtrack playing and you didn't listen to what they were talking about or anything, you'd be like, this is one tightly put together movie.
That's a great point.
And,
I almost might want to try that this weekend. Turn it down, put something on, maybe some good music underneath.
and the visuals, really what stuck with me. I still think about it today after watching it. I
Wow.
like the cinematography in it is definitely higher class, especially for a person's first full fledged movie. They were a YouTuber and they, switch to this. That's definitely our goal one day to be able to do is,
Absolutely.
full length feature film.
No, it's a great point, and I know Mr. Z wants me to corral myself from a time standpoint, but it gets me excited. The film part is the most exciting thing to me, and so often, and I know 5 million or slightly under isn't necessarily a tiny movie, but so much, especially the horror genre that comes out of Australia, I just love it. I can't explain it. There's just even their most basic movies. The acting is usually really solid for those low budget movies. They make a lot of the American low budget horror movies look silly. So good stuff. Look forward to that sequel, as it were. And anything else you want to share about that before we move into our next flick? All right, we're going to go into Leave the World Behind. One of those titles that it takes you a while to either say it or see it before you remember it. It's like, can you watch that movie on Netflix? I know Mr. Z had recommended this one to me. He ran it across his eyes before I did. And runtime on that one, a little long, 221. So we're pressing almost 2.5 hours. And scores out of the gate, Mr. W, a 5, and Mr. Z, an 8.5. So rarely do we have that much of a chasm between our scores, but it happens. I'll run through my feedback real quick. The camera work was phenomenal. The EV, so the electric vehicle piece was brilliant. Finally, someone expanded on what would happen with that autopilot self-driving element, and we'll leave it at that.
Well, and that's funny that most of all Teslas with autopilot got recalled. So,
Oh boy, I guess that's where art imitates life, right?
yes,
Shout out to Elon Musk. The acting, this was a great combination, right? It's a big special effects movie. It's much bigger than I expected it to be, and an acting piece. And I don't know if I've really seen that type of marriage in a while, where the acting, if you just carved out all the big special effects and just mentioned them instead of showed them, the acting was really, and I'm just drawn to that. Would have liked to have seen everyone meet up at the end, as it were, in the bunker, and that is a spoiler, so deal
yes,
with it.
already too late.
Very small cast, which I like too, right? It's an intimate cast, but it's a big movie. Really, it's like a sweet and sour sucker when it came to a movie. We really liked Kevin Bacon playing the smart doomsayer in a very limited role, and I think that's the way I like my Kevin Bacon, in a small dose. And we don't care for Kevin Bacon, so for us to say we liked him in that role should give some indication. And then I don't know. Do you want to try to pronounce that actor's first name? Because I would just slaughter it.
No, I would do the same. So,
Yeah, so his last name is Ali, and I can pronounce that. But he's just an excellent antagonist. I don't know how else to label him because that's really what he is for a good portion, at least in your mind. He was in House of Cards, right?
that's correct.
Yeah, he's such a great actor. I'd love to see him in more things that I like. His acting drove the movie, in my opinion. Julia Roberts' acting was subtly spot on. Oddly, she did not look like Julia Roberts as we recall, except for possibly two quick frames. Anything else you'd like to add about what's Leave the World Behind?
That was a pretty big summary. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just say, yeah, I gave it an 8.5. Visually stunning, and I think that they did do a good job of showing some special effects. But I mean, it was very like you didn't say. I would say that they didn't show a lot, and they were more leading up to the imagination, which was what made it more suspenseful to me. But it was overall a great film. Definitely a must watch if you haven't. But I mean, if Netflix has anything to show you the trending movies, it's definitely been up there. So I'm sure a lot of people have.
Yeah, definitely. Good point. All right, so moving along, we're going to review the original Hollow Man based on a conversation that Mr. Z and I had of the previous movie that brought up Kevin Bacon's name.
Oh
So,
boy, I can't wait for that one.
no, I know. I'm giving it a 7.5. I've always loved that movie for some reason. Mr. Z, even though he hasn't seen it at a dog's age, is giving it a 5. And I'm going to give a shout out to Josh Brolin and Elizabeth Shue, two of my more favorite underrated actors. And we'll also review in this month's newsletter Saltburn. So this has caused quite a burn across social media. And this is Amazon MGM Studios release. It might be one of their first releases since Amazon acquired MGM. I don't want to be quoted on that. And it's caused a stir. And was it worth the watch? So I'm definitely, I already have my thoughts on that, and we'll wait for Mr. Z to comment. And then also Walden. I ran across this small thriller, and it stars the girl next door's Emil Hirsch. And you're like, the girl next door? So hopefully you've seen that with Alicia Cuthbert and Emil Hirsch. And he also kicked ass in Tarantino's Once Upon a Time. He played Jay Sebring. Seen him in primarily small roles. It's very an eclectic film. I call it a thriller. I know it's labeled as horror, so definitely look forward to that review. And then news hot off the presses. So, Mr. Z, you want to share that with the audience?
The Wolfman updated. Ryan Gosling's schedule to play the hairy beast is no longer attached to the project. And for the longest time, that had been in development hell. So it's been finally, brought together. And names are not my favorite thing. So I can definitely tell you, I don't know who is now taking the lead for the classic monster.
It's Christopher Abbott.
Christopher Abbott, okay. And then Liam Weno is now back to direct it, which he had left the project previously.
And you would think that he's hopefully going to save it to a degree.
Yeah, hopefully. Definitely looking forward to seeing what that has. There has not been, I think, in my opinion, never really a good Wolfman movie.
Oh, it's terrible. There's been a, pardon my French, there's been a few good werewolf movies, but those that try to duplicate that original Wolfman, I think of Benicio del Toro. Holy cow. I'm going to leave that at that. So we've got some random obscure horror film suggestions. So I'm going to read through these real quick, and hopefully if Mr. Z hasn't seen some of these, he's going to put his eyeballs on them, and I recommend them to the audience. If you're into horror, you want to see some random stuff, most of it's older. We've got The Beast Within from 1982, Humanoids from the Deep from 1980. That movie is insane, so be ready for it. No kids in that one. Barren Blood, that's a British flick from 1972. You got to take a look at that one. That is just, it's very disturbing. The Incredible Melting Man, which you can't even imagine. There is a scene where the lead character is melting from the title, and he's running through the woods, and then one of the guys chasing him says, "Oh my God, it's his ear." Anyway, that's
incredible.
That's from 1977. We've got Mausoleum, and it's not a spoiler alert, but there is a scene in Mausoleum where a girl is in a car and she literally throws up all her internal organs. So it's worth that watch alone if you're into graphic horror from back in the day. And then we also have High, but technically the title is Hot Tension. We're talking about an Australian film, 2003, and currently it's on Prime.
Yeah,
So
but you better watch it before what was just announced, and I'm sure everyone that has Prime got the email notice now. But yeah, it's gonna be $2.99 if you want to watch it without ads. You knew it was coming; it was eventually coming. But I think one of the biggest thing I think that all these companies forgot is if they start putting ads, and making us pay for it. That's the whole reason why we left, watching cable TV, so on and
regular
so forth.
TV. Yeah, that's a great point. It's crazy. It's like they can't see the forest for the trees. So thanks for giving that shout out. It's either $36 a year or you eat the commercials. For me, I hate to say it because I don't watch a ton on Amazon Prime, but I am an Amazon Prime preview member, and I'm going to have to move away from it because I'm not paying for ads and I'm not watching a movie with commercials. Movies were never meant to be watched with commercials. Never.
Hell no.
So enjoy those movies. Give them a look-see. And then in music, and we're not going to go into a lot about music. This is the holiday edition, so there's less content, and I'm trying to adhere to the 5150 rule other than being committed. So I've got some listing of groups from the Seattle Sound. And Mr. Z, you want to just chime in on any of these?
Well, so what we have coming up is Temple of the Dog from 1990 through 1991.
Yeah, can you imagine how short-lived that was?
Totally. Meat Puppets, 1980 to present.
And you can hear Kurt Cobain on that one acoustic song. And that was the Meat Puppets.
which I thought that was just the title of the song from
No,
Nirvana.
but
But
literally, it was a group he
all right,
stole it from.
Nirvana, 1987 through 1994.
All that music in 7 years.
Soundgarden, 1984 through 2019.
And please refrain from playing Spoon Man.
Allison in Chains, right? Some people really get that title wrong.
And I love that title, right? If you say it right, it is one of the most awesome rock group names of all time.
1987 through 2002. Pearl Jam, 1990 to the present, which I haven't heard any new stuff from them in a while.
That's how they're listed.
Okay. Stone Temple Pilots, 1989 through 2015.
And believe it, that's another one where they say they're still active. But I mean, once Lane was gone,
Well, they also had one LP with Chester Bennington, believe it or not.
that's unique. They should have called themselves something different.
Ah, I liked what they did there. And how about you read the rest?
Stone Temple Bennington. All right, so we've got the Toadies, 1989 to present. Candlebox. So I got a little bit of a question mark there because I do like their music and it's definitely sentimental to me. But would you really consider them to be in that Seattle sound? They are from there, but do they have that sound?
I understand what they're getting at.
Okay, and that's 1991 to present. They're showing as still being active. Bush, 92 to present. Love Gavin. Mad Season, which was that kind of side project. It was like this super group. Lane Staley was no more. That group is still being listed as active, but once he passed in 15, I just don't consider those groups to still be active. Foo Fighters, that's a little group that Mr. Z and I might like a lot. That's from 94 to present, which I thought was interesting because it shows that Dave Grohl, once Kurt did what he did, he jumped right into another project, right, which is probably healthy for him.
Exactly.
Queensryche, very obscure. They were caught between the hair, the metal, the hard rock, and the grunge scene. They are from Seattle, 1982 to present. But boy, I don't know. Are you? Does their music resonate with you as being part of the grunge scene?
No.
And then we'll wrap this one up with Hole. We had to do that, right? 89 to 2012. Um, I, I just, from what I know, Courtney Love, she led that group. There's a lot of buzz if you look up different research articles that all the lyrics on that album, which was successful for the group, she found in a drawer, and they were all the lyrics that Kurt was going to use with Nirvana before he took his life. So very disinterested in that from that standpoint. And then quick side note about Hole, there's that one song where she sings "In My Makeup When I Wake Up," and I love that line and the way she sings it, but believe it or not, Billy Corrigan from the Smashing Pumpkins is the one that wrote that lyric. He flew out to an island where they were recording the album, and she was distraught. I don't know how to finish this song. I don't know how to finish this album. And he produced it without, I don't believe he even has any credit, and she never paid him. But I think his tight leadership on that production part at the end really made that album a hit. And we also have Mr. W's holiday playlist. So we won't get into a lot of detail on it, but I did put one together. A lot of old songs that just are sentimental to me. Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, Burl Ives. Runs the gamut. But real quick, Mr. Z, what are your thoughts on Christmas music in general?
Like the oldies like that, what you were talking about is pretty good, but anything more temporary or the same songs redone, I'm over it.
Like Jingle Bells, maybe?
I can't even listen to that.
We did listen to a little Christmas metal too, primarily from the 80s and early 90s. So that's always awkward, but also sentimental for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I love the holidays, but that part of the holidays, I'm glad to be over.
And I felt more strongly about that when I was Mr. Z's age, so definitely concur. So jumping into autos, we thought for this episode of the podcast for the holidays, we're going to speak to a couple of our favorite vehicles we have owned.
The first one was a 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. It was the 4.7 high output that produced 265 horsepower with a 5-speed automatic. It was this like fire mist metallic,
What a beautiful color.
and it was actually all-wheel drive, and it had I forget which Quadra-Trek
I think it
system
was
it
the
had.
two. I think it was no. You don't
No,
think
I
no?
think it was like four,
Oh wow. Okay.
Quadra-Trek 4. But it was amazing. Whatever it was, and like that, I don't even know if Jeep after 2007 started producing all-wheel drive like that on their Jeep Grand Cherokees. But anyways, to the interior, it was two-toned, and I don't know if that was that Australian or
So
ostrich leather.
ostrich. They said that the light gray inserts were ostrich. I still can't believe that.
I don't know. Even when we were about to sell it, that interior is in way better shape than the current Jeep Grand Cherokee we have. But it has like the wood that was in there too. Like that was
It was real.
it was amazing looking. Like it looked like the kind of glasses I like to wear that has like brown and
Like
orange
almost
specks in
tortoise,
it.
right? Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was burled wood. It was like something you would have seen overseas, like in Jaguar.
You drove it in any weather condition, and in Arizona, typically would never see snow, but it was probably one of the best smoothest drives I've ever driven in. Honestly,
Yeah, what a beautiful vehicle. Yeah, it gives me chills. And we did a couple things to it, including putting a MagnaFlow muffler on it, and that just gave it that cool purr.
it was really nice, but it was obnoxious at 80, 85
It
miles
had
per hour.
it
It
had
had a
serious
terrible
drone, right?
drone,
Yeah, not the kind of drone you want to get for Christmas.
and then it also had. I didn't have a full cold air intake, but I had a drop-in K&N in it.
Yeah, I was, what did I know back then, right?
Well, I wish I would know more about cars too. It had like headlight problems, so like the right side was like aiming way lower, and the dealership that said that I like this, it was like over $1,000 or something,
Easily.
and all I needed to do was change out the housings, and we would have had a way better experience. But the naive Michael,
And the naive Mr. W for sure. I get it. Yeah, beautiful vehicle. Ran across the picture of it not too long ago and just love that vehicle, that's for sure.
yeah,
That's my hope is moving forward to find something similar to that again.
right.
So, and for me, my reminiscent vehicle, because been on the planet a little bit longer than Mr. Z, so I've had a few more vehicles, but it was a 1979 Chevrolet Z28 that did have a 5.7, or what we called back in the day a 350 cubic inch engine, which at the time was the biggest V8 you could get from Chevrolet slash GM. And sadly enough, you're talking 79, right? So it's considerably older than the Grand Cherokee. And that engine only produced 175 horsepower. Pretty embarrassing.
It was
Um,
probably pretty heavy too.
Very heavy two-door coupe. Those doors seem to go on forever. And a side note there, that year in 79, the Corvette with a very similar V8 engine produced 180 horsepower.
Nice.
It was really, we thought that it was the end of any type of performance vehicles in the United States. In 1979, the Camaro had record sales, and I believe the Z28 numbers were around 80,000 sold out of 270,000 total Camaros. So the Camaro was really popular back then. The color on that one was it was almost black. It was midnight blue by definition. It had the factory lighter blue stripes on it, and that interior was kind of robin's egg blue vinyl. Not the most appealing, but overall with that vehicle when it was clean, it was amazing. And driving it was a four-speed manual, right, with a V8. And even with that state, the only thing that we do is I took it over to a friend's shop, and they removed the catalytic converters. Still kept the factory muffler, which was such an odd setup on those Camaros. The muffler ran parallel to the rear end and then broke into dual exhaust. So it wasn't completely truly dual exhaust, but it was fast. A stupid car to have in Wisconsin in the winter. Rear wheel drive, had no traction, but when it was sunny and you could hit the gas with that four speed, it definitely was fun for sure. So let's talk about a very little known and given very little respect muscle classic, the AMC Javelin, specifically the AMX model.
I happen to really like this actually.
I love that car, and you just never see them. Back in the day, I would see them in the Midwest, but most of them were rusted out. The AMX was produced from 68 to 70, so it was a specialty model of the Javelin itself. And it was a legitimate two-seater. And it was only one of two American autos with the two-seat configuration in that era. What was the other one? What was the other two-seater, Mr. Z?
The Corvette.
You got it. And back in the 50s, there were two American autos that were two-seaters. Want to take a stab at that?
I have no idea.
You already guessed one. So the Corvette,
Right.
53 that came out. And then, believe it or not, the Ford Thunderbird for 3 years, 55 to 57, it was built by Ford to compete with Corvette. And at the end of the third year, they're like, we can't compete with Corvette. So they made the Thunderbird a cruising vehicle with 4 to 5 seat capacities. The MX assembled in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Let's give a shout out to that. There was some stories that said some parts were produced in Australia too. Kind of suspect of that note. Came with a beast of a V8, probably 5 or 6 different configurations. And the top one had 340 horse and a 4-speed manual transmission. Looked unique. I drove a 343 V8, which probably was around 180 horsepower at the time. It was just a base Javelin, and it had a 3-speed on the floor, and that was quick because it wasn't that heavy for a two-door coupe. But you get a chance to see an AMX, do a double take or look it up online. If you're into cars, it was really something special that AMC did. Into some sports, Bucks, Packers, and NFL notes. So Bucks lost in the semifinal of the in-season tournament in Vegas. Regardless, the Bucks are starting to hit their stride. As of the end of this calendar year, the Bucks are 24-8. They are currently in second in the Eastern Conference with about 40% of the season completed. So I would say look out to the rest of the NBA. And the Green Bay Packers head into New Year's Eve game. And yes, we are recording this slightly before the end of the month, so we won't have an update. I've been predicting these, so I'm going to say that yes, they're entering New Year's Eve at 7-8, but they're going to come out of it 8-8 as they beat the Vikings in Minnesota. As the Vikings are playing their fourth quarterback of the season, he's a rookie 5th rounder.
And as much as I am a Green Bay Packers fan, unfortunately, I feel like at this rate, with the last few games that I've seen, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why they will be leaving 8-8.
That means that they'll win.
Yes.
Okay,
but
good.
I'm just saying it's because they're on their 4th-string quarterback.
Right. That's really, significant, even if it is on the road. So Jordan Love, I believe he is coming into his own. Mr. Z has not been able to capture all of his playing in the last few games, but he really is. It's his first year starting, so he's going to have happy feet from time to time, but he's making throws, and he's cool in the pocket, and those are huge indicators. And he is close to the top in a lot of categories with the quarterbacks in the league. So any thoughts on Jordan?
I don't think that sounds quite right. I mean, they're 7-8, so I don't think they could.
I know wins is what matters, but if you just look at QB stats,
who gives a crap about that?
Joe Barry and that defense, they've let these as they were playing solid until they played the Giants, and they have let nobody quarterbacks like Tommy DeVito and Bryce Young, and even we know Baker Mayfield, but they ran roughshod and looked like Pro Bowlers against that defense. Most likely he's not going to be returning.
You talking about Don DeVito, like the actor?
Yes, he was literally at halftime. He did a Jersey Mike's commercial, and then he went back to the game.
That's
so
pretty cool.
Well played there. LaFleur, what is the deal? We know that there is some discipline issues, and there is a little bit of an unraveling piece. Who knows what's going to happen? Special teams, the defense, I'd give them all a big yuck. The special teams coach, who was the interim head coach at the Raiders, Bisaccia, he's the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league, and it's not showing. So hopefully there's going to be some house cleaning there. I think they'll keep LaFleur. And then Jair Alexander last week, I just have to give a shout out to that jerk. He goes out onto the field as a captain, even though he wasn't picked as a captain. And I've listened all week, and you're talking about NFL players with 10, 12, 15 years experience. They've never seen anything like it in their entire career, college or pro. And so he was suspended yesterday for one game, conduct detrimental to the team. If you've ever seen him interviewed, I don't care how guys talk, if they want to show their personality, but this is a guy that's he's selfish. He's overpaid, and something needed to be done. And Devondre Campbell, I don't think he'll play again. He tweeted a couple weeks ago that he's not going to play hurt anymore. He wants more respect. And when a player in the NFL says they're not going to play hurt anymore, they're hurt after the first game of the season. That's the NFL.
Yeah.
So you need to get rid of those attitude cases. So will Green Bay make the playoffs? Our beginning of the season predictions, Mr. Z had them going 7-10 overall, and I had them at 10-7. So any thoughts on whether or not they'll make the playoffs? They have to win their next two games, which is Vikings, New Year's Eve, and then they are in Green Bay to beat up on the Bears.
Well, I sound like the bad guy if I don't want them to.
No, not at all. It's not a
So,
want. What do you think?
but with my prediction, they wouldn't be making it. But I want them to. But if they win, they'll definitely most likely win on New Year's Eve.
Nice.
But who knows about the next game?
Yeah, and it's the Bears in Green Bay.
Yeah.
They're hated rivals. The Bears are really a mess.
I know. So are the Packers, though. I mean, no, they're fine.
I know it's home cooking, right? So we'll see. Our predictions are going to probably land somewhere in the middle, and then we also had our way too early predictions for the Super Bowl in September, and Mr. Z had it Eagles versus Bengals with the Eagles winning, and the Eagles are currently 11-4. The Bengals aren't going to make it to the big dance when their starting quarterback went down for the season several games ago. No team is going to sustain that typically, so he could still see the Eagles. And for myself, I had Eagles versus Dolphins with the Dolphins winning. Eagles currently, I think I said that already, are 11-4. Dolphins are 11-4. So that one could still come to fruition. Shout out to the big fish. And we've got Chiefs
I
are
don't
struggling.
think Dolphins a fish, but it could be wrong.
I know it's tongue in cheek.
Oh, okay.
Save the tuna. Chiefs are struggling at 9-6. So it's fun to see a team that I just have never liked struggle. And Pat Mahomes, who everybody loves, and he's everybody's darling, he exploded and imploded one game on the sidelines a few weeks ago and showed his true colors. So be interesting to see if State Farm renews his contract after losing his shit, as they say. And the Ravens 12-4 look great, just beat up on the Niners. And the Niners and the Lions are both at 11-4. And the Lions, want to read that stat there?
Lions win first division title since when? 1993.
Oh my. Yeah, so there is. I thought for sure we'd hear about the residents of Detroit burning the city down because that's typically what they do if their teams win. So they might be waiting for at least one playoff win.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. NFL's entertaining if you're into that, which a lot of people are. And finally, no updates on the curling season. I know we've had a lot of calls for that, so screw curling. And no, we won't talk hockey. I know I've had some people pulling on my shirt tails on that. Puck you, as they say.
Good one.
And then Mr. Z mentioned adding professional darts to our sports section. I'm not sure I get the point.
That's real funny.
All right, so we're going to transition from humor, which we know does help our wellness, into wellness. So we really want everyone to check out our special guest article in our newsletter, The Sprinkler. This is a wellness piece, and their personal story is poignant and timely. Something we're going to do moving into 2024. Have special guests, definitely within the newsletter, but I know Mr. Z would like us to have some guests on the podcast, so we'll be working on that. And we understand the holidays are trying for many, right? I definitely can share that. It's a sentimental thing. I'm getting older. My son is older, and it's just, you can have that gloom. But Mr. Z is great about snapping me to it, staying positive, living in the moment, getting outside and soaking up some vitamin D, and reaching out to those family and friends and letting them know, hey, we care about them. And those are great ways to combat, as they say, the blues. Really appreciating what we have as opposed to what we don't have.
But the great thing is, too, is that we're just about out of all the holiday. So after the new year, everyone loves that I'm going to make some changes.
Resolutions.
So it's all about positivity moving forward. So we're on the right path.
I love that. That's a great sentiment there. And Apple's latest iOS. So it includes a journal app. and I have been testing it out a little bit. I don't know if Mr. Z has had a try at
I
sampling it,
have a few times.
and it's really nice. I know that writing by paper, especially for somebody old school like me, is very traditional, but I can see how this it's so accessible. You have notifications if you want them. It sends real polite reminders about adding something. We've talked about journaling since September. Definitely feel that it is a positive, and we're not the only ones. You can do research on that. It definitely can help with your well-being. Whether you're and you don't have to always just journal because something bad happened that day, right? Journal about good things too, right?
What shows in there, it's a good thing to point out is, memorable moments, or even just you worked out, like write down like what you did that day, what you accomplished. It again, it can be little things.
Yes, the little things, right? And like you said, and I like what you said about working out. So I know you consistently hit the gym, right?
Yes, sir.
But even for those that maybe you keep saying you don't do it, then one day you do it. There's a perfect,
Yeah, you
and
can write that down.
it doesn't have to be long either. So definitely shout out to Apple that iOS update and the Journal app. So
All
check it
right,
out,
sponsor us, Apple. Thank
right?
you.
And those that use Android, I'm sorry. Right. So this one is wellness and practical life skills combined. So we'll review the Amazon Health piece after the new year. I've been doing some extensive research on it after Mr. Z presented it to me. Is it worth it? If you ever used MD Live, which I used to promote, I've researched both extensively, and you'll have to wait till the next month to get some details on that pricing and whether or not we think it's worth it. And then this is interesting because I know Mr. Z, this topic came up based on a card that he received that was handcrafted. But neuroscience says drawing, coloring, and or doodling can lower your stress and make you more productive. We'll explore that in our next newsletter as well. Anything else you want to say about that?
Oh, I think that's good.
All right. So about the holidays and a new year, share a quick story about Frito-Lay customer service reps. So this kind of is that practical life skills as well. But I called, had an issue with a product that I bought, and long story short, the woman was friendly. It was conversational, and she mentioned something about my last name and how it linked to a TV show. And then she mentioned that her name was Carolina, and she said she goes by Caroline. And did I know Sweet Caroline? And of course I did. And we talked about even how yes, that's a Neil Diamond song, but what brought that back into fruition or the cult topic was Saving Silverman, the movie. And it was just a great example of how when you just have conversations with people, you can connect on so many levels. But it's not only that, it's if you do have a negative experience and you're calling in, be cool. It's not their fault. And a lot of times that type of demeanor can help you win your case, as it were. As far as the holiday season, the new year, and all that goes into it, Mr. Z had mentioned that. But what do you think about New Year's resolutions? Do you support them?
Yes and no. It's a bad habit to have, but a good thing to think positively to try to make changes. But it shouldn't be once a year. And I don't know the analytic, but most of the time that when people make New Year's resolutions, they think it's like 85% don't fall
Oh,
through the time.
I bet you it's easily that high, right? And then you feel bad, right? And then what is there goes the positivity. So set yourself daily, weekly, or monthly goals, but it doesn't have to be based on a new
And
year,
realistic.
right?
And you should
Realistic,
have throughout the year.
right? Throughout the year, right? It's got to be consistent. So let's just throw that word new or the saying New Year's resolutions right out the window. The country and the world around us, man, refrain from scrolling and constantly staying on alert with headlines. Be in the moment. As far as practical life skills go, limited this month due to the holidays. Two quick tips. So, the first tip will be part of an ongoing piece in our newsletter after the new year. It's about receiving poor service, poor quality, and/or a negative experience with something purchased. First and foremost, save your receipt. You don't have to contact the company or restaurant the same day either. That's a wives' tale. Take notes after the incident or purchase if it's something extensive. Just jot them down so you have them when you do contact them by email or phone. And then when you contact that company, we already talked about it, right? Be calm, be cool, right? Call it professional if you want. Have a good attitude. It's not the person on the other end's fault to begin with. And they're going to hear you loud and clear if you just are cool and have a conversation. And then being consistent and following up. Mr. Z talked about something that I'll share next month. But you have to follow up with these companies. Should you have to? No. Do you have to? If you want your results to be what you want, you do. And then, Mr. Z, talk to us about something real quick if you want, because it came up with a grill assembly. But either assembling boxed furniture or grills and the like. Any tips on getting through that? I know for a lot it can be stressful.
I think the biggest thing is have a great big area, depending on the furniture or a grill or opportunity that you're able to unbox something. Have a big enough space and make sure that you have enough time too, because never like rushing around and trying to get something done quickly is never going to be the answer. So big open space and have plenty of time, and then take it easy. Just it's directions nowadays are pretty bad, but they give you enough, like I would say, pictures or lack thereof to kind of get through it.
A
So
foundation, at least, right?
yeah, just take your time is the
Pace yourself.
biggest thing.
Is there anything else that might help that assembly?
I mean, a few drinks might help, but
Nice. Now we're talking. I promise you that'll help too. But those are, they're, it's insightful and it seems rudimentary, but a lot of you out there don't do that. And if you follow that, it's going to make that a lot more enjoyable, as it were, and you're going to get a better result when it's all done. So much more to come in these areas, and basically saving our psychos time, money, and stress in the coming new year. We look forward to our next chapter with our production company. We have 6 copyrighted full treatment outlines to pitch, along with our full features script, which is being reviewed for copyright right now. So 2024 is going to be a great year. Headlines, you want me to jump into them?
yeah, we have probably less than 9 minutes, but we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We are good. I think we have a pretty good pace going. So headlines. There seems to be a surreal link between owning cats and schizophrenia. This is not a joke. Australian researchers are suggesting that owning a feline as a pet could double the owner's risk of schizophrenia related disorders.
Man, am I glad I'm not a cat owner. I like cats.
I think it's telling where we are with that. This was no small pool of data either. The researchers analyzed over 15 studies published over the last 40 years. This data came from 11 countries, including the US and UK. This formulated take on the data was first proposed in 1995. Interesting. It was a good year. That finding was based on a parasite that cat owners could be exposed to. That finding has never been proven. A good majority of the studies found that children growing up around the 4-footed carnivores might make those children more likely to develop schizophrenia. Man, researchers agree that better and more broad research is required before any firm conclusions can be, um, I guess, finalized. But it's interesting that the researchers claim this. This is a quote. After adjusting for covaries, we found that individuals exposed to cats had approximately twice the odds of developing schizophrenia. That's it just blew my mind. Thought it was a great read. And the study was published in Schizophrenia Bulletin. So if you want to look that up and get more details on that, for you cat owners out there, Chris, I'm thinking of you. Definitely read that. And then an update on Hall & Oates. The saga continues. The details are finally aplenty. Suffice it to say, Hall is trying to stop Oates. Sounds like it should be a serial, I don't know, from selling his portion of their intellectual property. It's amazing how some musical artists ever coexisted and churned out hit after hit. And ultimately, it comes to light they never liked one another. There is no truth to the rumor. The duo is at least making nice to redo their hit Rich Girl to Rich Asshole. All right, moving right along, McDonald's opens first Cosmics. I think this is a much to do about nothing. I could definitely be wrong, but I don't see how this is going to be something that's going to be successful, at least from the initial feedback. Mr. Z, any feedback on that?
Well, the things I see around it doesn't even make sense for them to continue with it. So
Yeah, they're trying to be Dutch Brothers and a few other places out there all in one. The spinoff is being tested in Illinois near the corporate headquarters of Mickey D's, as well as a handful of locations in Texas. From the menu we have seen, which does not include burgers or fries, you can count us out on this one. All right, and speaking of Texas and burgers, Texans get a free license plate. Sorry, it's not free. My bad. It should be. Texans can get a license plate with a big cheeseburger on it. This is a newly added to the list of specialty plates Texans can purchase. This one is based on Mighty Fine Burgers, which is a regional burger joint. The franchise offers customers a $150 gift card if a Texan decides to purchase the tasty looking plate. The cost of the plate through Texas Motor Vehicles comes in at well done $90. Some fans of the Mighty Fine chain could make out and pay for their fries and drink over several visits. Mr. Z and I are waiting for the Big Kahuna Burger to land in Arizona.
Stop it. I knew the day was coming, but I'm waiting for all the advertisements that we're going to have, like even on our license.
Do you think they maybe could even be electronic?
Oh my God.
Like flashing,
Yeah.
like Total Recall?
Can't wait.
All right, Mr. Z brought this one to me. Sustainable mushroom coffins, you say? In the Netherlands, a Dutch inventor is growing coffins by using the root structure of mushrooms. Brilliant. And biodegradable, of course. We wanted to end the headlines on an uplifting note for the holidays. The sycamore gap tree is showing signs of life. That magical tree and doubly iconic wonder was savagely chopped down by some idiots. The good news about the 200-year-old tree dropped recently, and officials are hoping the seeds and cuttings can be nurtured into strong saplings. The beautifully, almost magical tree's trunk may possibly regrow as well. It will be a few more years before the viability of growth is confirmed. So that's definitely a positive.
Also very sad.
Right. As Metallica would say, sad but true. All right.
Whatever.
Interesting individual of the month. This is a real person or fictional character, remember? Our most interesting individual of the month is...
Elvis Presley.
Yeah, Great Balls of Fire. Oh, no, that's Jerry Lee Lewis. Sorry. TCB. So, a couple random things about Elvis. Full name, Elvis Aaron Presley. Date of birth, 1/8/1935. Called the King of Rock and Roll. Loved horses. Not that way, Mr. Z. You want to continue with this?
Was a natural blonde into his late teens. Has sold over 1 billion records worldwide.
That was billion, and it's not prestige.
Right, it's with a B.
Got it.
He was 6 feet tall and had a twin brother, Jesse.
Yo, Jesse.
Biggest hit, Don't Be Cruel.
Don't be cruel. I can't sing.
Yeah, let's cut that one out. Singer, actor, and his favorite movie was what?
King Creole. Yeah, and he starred in that one.
And I didn't hear that, so of course he liked it because he famously loved himself.
And his favorite actor was Shelley Fabre. I think she was a Gidget girl in a small TV show to start with, but she was in three of his flicks, and one of those was Girl Happy. And boy, were they happy when they met Elvis. What were his supposed last words?
I'm going to the bathroom to read.
And we're not going to go into that story, but most of you, if you know anything about Elvis, know how that one turned out. Favorite foods? Deep fried peanut butter banana sandwiches, cheeseburgers, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, corn on the cob, and biscuits. What was his favorite beverage?
Coke.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have time for Gus's review, or do we have to save it for next month, sorry.
I think that we're going to go on to the next thing.
All right, so we'll have a review of a local chicken place that Mr. Z turned me on to, and it escapes me. It is Gus's famous chicken?
Yes.
Okay. So definitely had a great meal there. So we'll get into some details, and shout out to Elvis as we eat there again. TCB, baby. Do you know what TCB stood for?
I don't. I'm glad I don't.
Taking care of business. Bachman Turner Overdrive actually had a song like that. I don't know if that's where he got it from. And I'm going to give a shout out to the audience on Netflix. Check out Agent Elvis. It's an animated series. If you like animation and you like adult animation, and I don't mean like
You don't have to clarify things.
Heathcliff or something, but it's good. It's unique. It's playing off the fact that Elvis was made an honorary federal agent by President Nixon. So give that a try. And for the sign off, do you want to give that out to the audience?
Be always at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let each new year find you a better person.
And who was that brought to us by?
Benjamin Franklin.
Nice. That dude was such a rock star for his time, wasn't he? And we want to thank everybody for listening to episode 5 of Psycho Studios podcast. And we'll end each episode like we usually do with a takeaway. Mr. Z, what is your takeaway from today's holiday special?
That I'm glad that the new year is coming and that moving 2024 is going to bring some very unthinkable things.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, imaginable, but maybe unthinkable. I like that. My takeaway is just how much I really enjoy doing this. There's such a positive vibe throughout it. It's interesting and it's fun. And ultimately, really making sure that I focus on coming into the new year positive and know we've got a lot in front of us that's positive. We'd like to hear from our audience. Comments, feedback, and suggestions are welcome. Email us at psychostudios66@gmail.com. Again, that's all one word, psychostudios66@gmail.com. You can reach us at our website, psycho-studio.com. And reminder, our podcast newsletter and more can be accessed through our website. We make announcements on Instagram and X when we drop new content. And definitely also wanted to say that our newsletter is very special for the holidays. It's got those recipes, it's got cocktails, and it's got an amazing electronic and printable 13-month calendar that has original photos by Mr. Z. It's visually stunning in my opinion. I really hope everybody checks it out. So be safe and stay psycho, and Happy New Year to all.